Hi my loves, welcome back, welcome to my channel, welcome if you guys are new. It is the end of the month, which means another wrap up. So today we're going to be wrapping up the 10 books I read in the month of June. I do want to apologize in advance. This month has been a hectic month. And because I'm going on a trip, like when you see this, I will be overseas. I don't have as much content for the month of July. I wanted to get as much as possible filmed for you guys. So that meant filming pretty much every read. So there is only like 1 or 2 books that aren't actually in reading vlogs this month. So you have probably seen my reactions to these books. These will just be kind of my overall thoughts. I will say, since I read some of those books, my ratings have changed. My thoughts have changed. So I feel like I have a lot of new things to talk about. These books have kind of sat with me. Some of my thoughts have changed on them, but I just wanted to apologize that a lot of these books you already have seen in reading vlogs and stuff. But yeah, this will just be a wrap up of everything I did read. So as I said, 10 books, which for me, pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. One of those books was also a really big book. We also tackled a lot of intimidating reads this month, which I'm really proud of myself for. I feel like that was a really big goal going into this month. We had a lot of really scary reads on my TBR. And guys, there was only one book I didn't get to on my TBR this month. For me, that is so good. That is so good of me. The one book I didn't get to was Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It, and I really want to read it soon. It was just a little bit difficult to find. When I find it in a bookstore, I will grab it and read it. We actually had a 5-star this month, which we haven't had a 5-star in a little while, so I'm very happy about that. Overall, just a really good month, and we have a lot to talk about, so I'm not going to ramble on anymore. We're going to jump straight into it. The first book I tackled in the month of June was, of course, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I do have a really big reading vlog in this, and I feel like I talked a lot about my thoughts on this, so I'm gonna keep it pretty short and sweet because I do have a lot of thoughts. This is a very big book. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but overall, I did enjoy this one. However, it was my least favorite in the Stormlight Archive so far. I feel like that's a pretty normal reaction to have to this book. I think a lot of people don't love it as much as they thought they would love it. So I think that's okay. I think that's a fair enough reaction. It was still a 4-star read. I still really enjoyed it. If you don't know, this is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. All of his books are really thick, and I will say in the past, they've been like 1,300 pages, and I've been like, you know what, this is okay. This is actually flying by pretty quickly, considering how long this is. This was the first book I read that felt like it was 1,300 pages. I think it was almost 1,400 actually. I think the things that made a massive difference in my reading experience for this book was, number one, we focused a lot on different characters in this book. We didn't focus on we kind of have a few core characters. So we have Kaladin, Dalinar, Shallan, and then like Adolin and stuff we love as well. But this one really took some side characters we hadn't heard a lot about before and focused on them. So that was quite interesting, to be completely honest. I wasn't really expecting that. And I feel like it really changed up the pace of the story, the dynamics between the characters, what we were focusing on. I also found it really ironic because in every single Stormlight Archive book, we have interludes. At the end of every part, we have like interludes that usually go for 100 to 150 pages of different POVs of these little tiny characters, but like their perspective is really relevant to the overarching plot or like this action that's really building. And usually I get to them and I'm like, oh, I just want to get back to our story. Like I'm fine reading about these characters, but I want to read about our main characters. I want to just like get back to the story. This was probably the first book where I was enjoying the interludes even more than some of the chapters we were reading. I think just because we delve into a character that I wasn't expecting in this book. In the past few books, it's been very much you delve into different characters for each book. So for example, first one, we very much learned a lot about Kaladin. The second one, Shallan. This one, I'm not going to say who we learn a lot about, but it just wasn't who I was expecting. It really wasn't. And I feel like that threw off my tone of the entire book. We also had some tropes that I wasn't obsessed with. Not like tropes, but key character points, I would say, that I wasn't exactly obsessed with. And that's okay. Also, if you watch that reading vlog, I don't know if you can see, but there's a little tiny dent on my book. That is because a page literally fell out of this book because it is so thick and the binding just cannot handle it. That was just a bit traumatic for me, if I'm gonna be honest. That really taught me. Like I cracked my spines and I was like, wow, okay, so this is why you don't crack your spines. Anyway, so yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I think it was really good. We also just got so much information, so much lore, and that got to a kind of an overwhelming point. I was like, I need a break. This is so much information and like important information, I'm sure. I do feel like the ending set up the next book really well. Like I am so intrigued to go into the next one. I actually can't wait to go into the next one just because I feel like this was a build up to the final book. And I am so curious to see how that book is paced because it's going to be paced very differently to any of the other Stormlight Archive books. So I'm excited about the last one. I really am. I wasn't obsessed with a lot in this. Like, as I said, the character development points weren't exactly my favorite. Did fall in love with some of our characters even more. Like I love Adolin to pieces. He is so great. He is just, Heart of Gold, honestly. I like that we're getting this perspective of a new character, but I want to be with my core family, my found family, you know? One of the only books I didn't do in a vlog this month was The Divorce by Frey McFadden. You guys know. If Frey McFadden releases a new book, I will be reading it. I can't help myself. She has this way of writing that is so incredibly addictive to me. I cannot put her books down once I start them. Like, there is no going back from there. And I've read pretty much every single book she has written. So obviously I was going to read this new release. I was like, yeah, try stop me. This one though, I will say, we were talking about this on the podcast and I think I'm getting a bit of Frey fatigue. I am starting to know her plot progressions so well. And this one it was so addictive. That was the good quality about it. I gave it a 3 stars because of how addictive it was. Like, I ate this book up so quickly. I feel like it was also perfect to read after Rhythm of War. I read it so quickly, but in saying that, felt like there was a few plot holes going on in this one. I did see the plot twist coming from kind of a mile away, just because, as I said, I know her plot structure so well and I know the kind of different routes she takes. And sometimes she still catches me off guard, but this one didn't really. Basically, we are following a couple who seems really happy. We are following the wife. She's in like this really happy marriage. She has a child with him, living like this kind of picturesque suburban life. She hasn't been working because her husband is like bringing in enough, so she's just being kind of stay-at-home mom. Then her husband turns around to her one day and is like, I want a divorce. And she's like, this is completely out of the blue. So we start to kind of follow them through her divorce and she starts to do some things that are a little bit crazy, but then also just weird things start to happen. It looks like someone's trying to frame her. It looks like he's trying to get custody over their child and not give her a chance. And then it kind of just goes from there. So very, very addictive. If you need to read a book in a night, like highly recommend. The thing that bothered me is we had a few key characters and 1 or 2 of them just fell off. Like, they seemed like they were really relevant and I think they could have been really relevant and then they just kind of disappeared. And I was like, oh, what happened to them? We don't even get an explanation for that. That's a little bit weird. So it was just kind of those things that I wasn't obsessed with. Still, I can't bash it that much because I think I've just read so many Frey McFadden books by now that I do know her plots pretty well. And I feel like I could see this one coming from a mile away. But yeah, I think the first 3/4 of this was really, really good. I just wish it was a little bit longer just so we could have tied some more loose ends together, had that sense of closure that you usually get when you finish a thriller book, and that, you know, that really satisfying sense of, oh, it all makes sense now. Like, that's why that happened and everything like that. I feel like I didn't get that moment in the end of The Divorce, which was a little bit sad, but it was a really, really easy read and honestly perfect for after I just finished Rhythm of War. I then went on to Yesteryear by Cara Claire Burke. First of all, I want to say this is a debut author. That is crazy because this book has obviously taken off. I was so intrigued by this one because I think it is a really interesting premise. Basically, we are following a trad wife, a modern influencer trad wife, I should say, called Natalie. She portrays this very beautiful, picturesque kind of life, living on a farm, living off the land. She has beautiful kids. I think she's got like 6 kids or something. She makes all her own sourdough, blah, blah, blah. But then behind the scenes, she actually has like a whole production crew and she has like these incredible industrial grade ovens and everything like that. And so what she's portraying online is just kind of a bit of a facade. Like, nothing is as it seems. It's not as simple as it seems. Then one morning she wakes up and she has basically been transported back, I think it's like into the 1800s or something like that. Basically back into when like wives would just be trad wives. Like, that was all their only role. And she starts to experience the harsh realities of what a trad wife actually was. She doesn't know whether she's like on a reality show. She doesn't know what's happening. And we basically go from there. I would very much describe this as a psychological thriller. I think this played with your mind a little bit, but it was very different to what I was expecting. I gave this a 4.25 in the end. I originally did a 4.5, brought it down to a 4.25. I feel like what I wanted more of is just for like my personal interest. This is just a me thing. Kind of wanted to know more about like the behind the scenes of her everyday influencer life. I wanted to see how that was executed, how that played out every day, just because that was really intriguing to me, and like what her fans saw versus what was actually happening. I wanted to hear a little bit more about that. And then as well, we were just very interestingly paced, and like the whole structure of this was not what I expected. I don't want to say too much because I do think it's good to go into a blind structure-wise. A lot of elements I really, really loved. I loved how he delved into ideas of like modern religion and just how like it is portrayed online and how that's not really necessarily true. And then we also dove into ideas like the manosphere. Natalie has always wanted like this really masculine, classic kind of farmer cowboy husband, which I thought was very relevant and interesting. But the ending kind of left me staring at the wall because I was like, I don't know if I love this or hate this. Like, I genuinely don't know. I think I loved it, but it was just one of those really thought-provoking books that I could not stop thinking about. Also, Natalie as a protagonist is probably one of the most annoying protagonists I have ever read about in my entire life. She irks me so much. I got so angry when I was reading this book. Like, she's just evil. She's mean. She's a mean person, even to like her family members and everything. So it was a really interesting read, an incredible debut. I do think if you're interested in it, pick it up. It is a little bit, I guess you'd say, historical fiction, but I would say it's more psychological thriller with a bit of historical elements. Obviously, there was a lot of hype surrounding it when I went into it, so I knew a lot about it before going in, but I can imagine if you pick this up completely blind and you just like have heard one or two people talk about it, you would be absolutely blown away by this. Like, the way this plot panned out was just not what I was expecting, and I think it would be so fun if you went in completely blind. But yeah, I just thought it was really relevant to this day and age, to be honest. I thought it really talked about some important things. It was kind of interesting reading. Obviously, I'm not a trad wife influencer. I'm not even that big of an influencer, but it was quite interesting. Like, she has millions of followers, but it was quite interesting reading it as an influencer and like, and then obviously knowing that you portray a certain side of your life. Like, you're not gonna portray all the nitty gritty, but like, she did it in a very deceiving and manipulative way that I would never approve of. A lot of thought-provoking things in it. Next, I read Summer Island by Kristen Hanna. This is just one that's been on my TBR for a ridiculously long time, and it was embarrassing that I hadn't got to it. So I ended up rating this one a 3 stars. Very low for Kristen Hanna, but this is one of her really, really early works. It was just republished, and that's why I have it on my shelf, because the publisher sent it to me. Whilst I love Kristen Hanna's writing, I really truly do. I think she is an incredible author, and I really want to read more of her historical fictions. This just felt like, to be honest, it felt like an overview of a book. It felt like an outline for a book, and there was so much room for further development. I'm not even kidding. There was so much of an option to just dive into the nitty-gritty of this. We're basically following Nora, who is a radio show host, and people call in and she'll give them motherly advice or give them relationship advice, whatever it is. And then one day, a scandalous secret from Nora's past gets revealed, and her career kind of goes up in flames. She is also estranged from her 2 daughters. She hasn't really talked to them in years, but because of this situation and like all the press that's surrounding her, she also gets in an accident. She has to be taken care of. Her daughters finally come back to look after her. She's specifically getting looked after by her youngest daughter, Ruby, who is or wanting to be a stand-up comedian. The older sister is a mother, so she's got a lot to do on by herself. But obviously there's a lot of tension between this. There's clearly something that's gone on in the past that we don't know about, and you just start to unravel the nitty-gritty of their relationships. But I felt like we were here. Like, we were just tiny strings unraveling. We could have been way down the iceberg. Like, we were just tip of the iceberg. Whether I feel like there was so much more we could have brought out of this. There was also like a little line of romance that I feel like could have been explored way more in terms of like that really helped our characters' personal development and everything. We had a few storylines going on. We were changing perspectives back and forth, and I just feel like it was too short. We needed way more for the amount of characters we had, for the amount of storylines we had, and for the topics we were talking about. I was like, these are such prevalent topics. These can be explored in so much more detail. Kristen, I need more from you. I'm sorry, but I do. So that was my biggest problem with this book. And to be honest, that seems like a theme that's been going quite a lot in 2026. Like, my biggest problem with books at the moment is I want more. Yeah, I feel like just so many books I've read this year, I'm like, that was great, but I need way more. Like, I need more detail. I need more depth. I need more character growth, you know? Like, there was just so much that could have blossomed from this. This and The Divorce, I think, were my lowest rated of the month. Next, I was lucky enough to get an early copy of The Wretch Divine by Adeline Grace. This is her newest release, coming out in October 2026. So I got this ridiculously early, and I am so internally grateful. Thank you so much, Hachette, for sending this to me. Now, I actually have never read an Adeline Grace book before this. This was my first book. I really want to read Belladonna now because I loved her writing, and I gave this one a 4.25 because honestly, was a really fun romantasy. I don't know whether I'd say romantasy or fantasy romance. I still struggle with the difference, to be honest, but it is an angel demon fantasy. So we are following our protagonist, Aurelie. She is a knight, so she is like a soldier, and the next step in her like path is to make her first kill and therefore bond with an angel so that she can basically inherit this massive legacy passed down to her. However, the people she loves starts to turn into demons. They start to turn into like the people she fears, like her enemies, basically demons. And the only way she can find a cure to stop this from happening and get the people she loves back to their ordinary state is by teaming up with a demon and an angel. She realizes she can have multiple bonds as long as it's not like 2 angels, like it can be a demon and an angel. So she teams up them basically to find the cure to what is happening, to like converting everyone into evil. Honestly though, I loved this. Severin in this is like my new fantasy crush. I don't even get fantasy crushes very often, but in the mid-year book tag, there was like something that was like, what's your new fictional crush? And I was like, to be honest, Severin. He gave me butterflies. I haven't felt butterflies in a fantasy romance in a long time. I feel like I've just been skimming over the romance and just there for the fantasy. I was definitely here for both. This is a tiny, tiny bit of a love triangle. I'm starting to get over my hate for love triangles just because I think context can make a big difference, and that was definitely the case for this one. I loved Adeline Grace's writing though, and also this was like full-on action pretty much all the time. We were straight into it. Also, the magic system was really interesting. We're based on the divine scriptures, so it almost feels like there's this own religion that is based off the divine scriptures, and that basically impacts the magical abilities of people in this world. When you bond with an angel as well, you get access to their magical abilities. You basically become more powerful. It was a really, really fun magical world and very different to anything I've read before, which I, again, really appreciate. But also in the same sense, it felt kind of nostalgic because I used to read about angels and stuff all the time. Like, I'm talking Fallen, The Daughter of Smoke and Bone, like that kind of stuff. I used to read about angels all the time. So it kind of scratched that itch I always have. Like vampires and angels, oh guys, I love them in my romances. And I feel like this did it really well. I hadn't picked this up for a while purely because of the font being so small. I think it's like a size 10 font, so it kind of hurt my eyes to read a little bit, but so worth it. So worth it. This made me kind of fall in love with romancy again, so I did read 1 or 2 more romances after this one. Was so happy that I liked this one. I definitely need to read Belladonna now, very much on my radar. Okay, next we have Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Obviously I did this in a reading blog as well. This book has been haunting me, guys. I said in my TBR that I really want to read Morning Star on the Sun, the next one in this. On the Sun? I'm losing it, guys. I've been pre-filming like crazy. On the plane. I wanted to read Morning Star on the plane, but now I'm like, I just got sent a really exciting book in the mail. Knave and the Moon, guys. Knave and the... Very excited, so now I'm like, I want to take that one on the plane. I might still read Morning Star. I'm not sure. We'll see. The second book to Red Rising, you guys know that I did not like Red Rising very much. It was just like a 3-star average kind of read. I dove into this one. Immediately, it felt very different. Like, it felt like I was enjoying it a lot more. It almost feels like Red Rising was a prequel to this, and this was like the start to the series. It makes so much sense that there's so many books in this series as well, considering. I will say, I didn't really get into it until like the halfway mark. Like, I was enjoying it. It was fine. Pierce Brown's writing as well is one that takes me a lot longer to read because you do really have to read every single word. Like, there is no fast reading in this. His sentence structure is also very short and blunt, but also he'll phrase things in a very epic way. Like, he'll be phrasing these very normal terms in a very epic way. I can't explain that, but it's like, oh, I'm going to go fight. To fight I will go. Something like that, you know, that kind of vibe. Dramatic. The ending of this blew my mind. And when I say the ending, I mean literally the last few chapters, because I was waiting and waiting, because you'd all told me that this was going to be a crazy ending, and I was waiting and waiting, and I was like, guys, it's not that crazy. Like, it's good, don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying it so much more than the first, but still. However, then this ending blew it away, and that's why I really want to go into Morning Star soon. So I actually, I'm kind of torn. I actually think this is a 5-star read for me. First of all, I was thinking 4.75, but 5, the only thing, like, because just the ending made it so much better. I also fell in love with our characters so much more. Started to create a bond with our characters, which I just did not have in the first book. Still don't like Darrow. I still don't like Darrow. But anyway, however, the only thing I struggled with is picturing this sci-fi world in my mind. What is a little bit contradictory in my mind is the fact that this is influenced by Roman myths, I guess, like we have like Jupiter and everything, but then we have spaceships and stuff. And when we open in Red Rising, we're in this very slums kind of poor environment, kind of District 12 vibes. But then as we move through the series, we get to like, yeah, as I said, spaceships and gravity boots and all these prestigious things. And it's really hard for my mind to picture that. I honestly had the same problem when I read The Hunger Games for the first time when I was really young. I was trying to picture like District 12 being super poor and then the capital being really extravagant and wealthy. It's hard to picture in my mind. I think I just find dystopian and sci-fi books odd. My mind can't get my head around it. You know, when you get like pinned on one certain setting and then sometimes it's hard to change. I feel like fantasy books, you're in different places obviously, but it's all the same environment. Environments change really quickly in this scenario. I feel like I started to get a lot better towards the end, but the first half of this book, I was struggling. Next, I read Liar of Dreams by Libba Bray. This is the second book to The Diviners. I feel like I talked about this one quite a lot, but if you don't know what The Diviners is, it is such a classic booktube series, and I want to bring it back. I wholeheartedly am trying to bring this series back because I think everyone needs to read read it. It's a YA series. We are set in the 1920s, following Evie, who is a diviner. Basically, when she touches objects, she can read their past. But we also have this sense of mystery in the first one. The second book really advances from that though. I feel like the first book really set up everything. The second book, we expand on our characters so much. I gave this one a 4.5. I loved this book. Also, I pretty much listened to this all on audio and I cannot recommend it enough. It is one of the only books I would say listen on audio over reading it physically because the narration is fantastic. It is stunning. There are so many audio elements to this. There's like singing, there's little jazz numbers and like kind of creepy songs. And so I think having that audio element, makes it so good. I loved our characters though. We got such a strong sense of found family in this one. Evie annoyed me so much. She was meant to though. I'm pretty like 99% sure she was meant to annoy you that much. I will definitely be continuing this series. I'm definitely gonna do the next one on audio as well though, I think. The second one as well brought to light a lot of like political and social issues that were going on in the 1920s in New York at that time. I'm talking immigrants were getting discriminated against on a daily basis and how that really impacted our characters' lives. Like we get to see all that. There was a lot of racial discrimination, which like breaks my heart, but it was quite interesting and I think quite important to include in this because we were set in the 1920s in New York. Like that was such a prevalent part of that history. And I really liked the integration of it. Like, yes, that wasn't the main focus by any means, but the integration of it, I think, was really important, especially if I read this when I was younger. I think that balance of just a little bit of it, I would be like, oh, that's an interesting thought to think about. Like if I'm talking like younger. If I read this when I was younger, I actually think I would have been shockingly scared because it's very haunting. As I said, dealing with folklore, spiritualism, everything like that. It's very haunting. But it also just has the vibe of like the glamour and glistening golden age of the 1920s. Next, I read my book club pick for the month, which was This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. This is actually a co-authored book by husband and wife, which I think is so much fun. I love that. This one was good, but this is one that I think I had a better reaction to in my reading vlog than I did when I think back to it, if that makes sense. The more I think about it, I just feel like it didn't stand out to me too much. So I gave this one a 3.75. I think I said a 4 or a 4.25 in my reading vlog, and my thoughts have kind of drastically changed. There were just a few inconsistencies that I wasn't obsessed with. First of all though, the prologue for this book is basically about a girl, Maggie, who is kind of just trudging through her life, and one day she falls into this fantasy world. It's a fantasy world that she is super familiar with because it's a trilogy that she has read back to back multiple times. It's like her comfort trilogy. However, only 2 books out of the 3 are actually out, have ever been published. It's giving Name in the Wind, right? I will say the elements I loved of this was the fact that it did feel like you were right there with your protagonist and you had just fallen into your favorite fantasy world ever. And you kind of were like really excited and also just like blown away and just in this whimsical state of like, oh my gosh, this is like how I imagined it, or this is something from my favorite book that I'm actually getting to experience. Like that doesn't just happen. We don't know why she's there. We don't know why she's fallen into this world, but she basically starts to meet these characters, and because she knows the plot progression so well, she starts to influence it and try and save characters, etc., etc. So I really liked the beginning of it, but I think the overall thing that made a big influence on my rating was the amount of information overload we got. Every time we were introduced to a new element, Maggie would basically give us this paragraph spiel about how this character, how this element, how this food was pictured in the book, how this impacts the overall plot, everything. We would just get an information dump on whatever we were getting introduced to. And at the beginning that was fine, but by the middle of the book, I was like, okay, this is a lot. I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed now. And then we had this massive plot twist in the middle that I thought was really good. But then as it went on, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm obsessed with this because I just started to not love our love interest. He felt very possessive to me. I wasn't feeling sparks between them at all. He kind of almost became like a secondary character. And there was also just a few inconsistencies, like our characters. One thing that stood out to me was like one of our characters from this world, like I'm guessing medieval times. It's a very epic kind of classic fantasy. Said the term like highway robbery, and I was like, don't know that I love that. The elements I did love though was the found family. I love Caden and Clover. If you've read it, they are my everything. I want a book on them. I thought they were the cutest characters ever. And honestly, I did like Maggie. Like she was a very tolerable main protagonist, and we don't always have that. Next, I read Daughter of No Worlds by Cassara Broadbent. This has been on my TBR for a ridiculously long time, and then Mads chose it for my TBR this month, and it was finally like the push I needed. I loved this. I loved this so much more than I was expecting to. I really thought it was just gonna be just another fantasy romance that I kind of read, was like, yeah, okay, and moved on from it. But honestly, I really enjoyed it. So basically we are following Tizana, who is a slave, and she finally buys her freedom. But when she kind of confronts her leader, her leader, no, her like commander, owner, I don't know what you'd call it. She confronts him and's like, I've finally bought my freedom. He gets really angry and so she basically kills him. The only way she can see saving herself is by pledging herself to the orders and becoming an apprentice to learning to harness her magic and then to join the orders. However, her mentor, Max, is very grudging about this. He does not want to be her mentor. He is retired or whatever. He doesn't want to do this. And she's also really old for a mentor. Like usually you do your apprenticeship when you're like 12. She's 21, I think. What I loved about this though was how soft and kind-hearted Tizana was. It was so nice to have a character that was very much like set on revenge and like wanted to make these big changes, but was also so true to herself and was like, anger's not gonna get me anything. I need to just be action. I need to do the best that I can and I'm not gonna be angry and like, I hate the world kind of vibe. Which look, don't get me wrong, I love a bit of rage like that. It really does fuel some of the best stories, but it was nice to have just a bit of change of pace and I really liked that about Tizana. The romance in this also really stood out to me. It was a bit of a slow burn. I probably wanted a little bit more of a slow burn, but overall pretty good. Like I feel like it's hard to get an actual slow burn that lasts more than a book these days. I want them to be kissing in the second book, like end of the second book at least. That's my kind of slow burn, but I know I'm the minority in that sense. But yeah, this one just really surprised me. I liked it so much more than I thought I would. The last book I read in the month of June was The Someday Garden by Ashley Poston. This was also sent to me. It comes out in July, so you guys will have it out, I think, by the time this video is out. But it is Ashley Poston's newest release, and this is basically, I want to say it's literally just The Secret Garden, but make it in a modern setting and whimsy and Ashley Poston it. Like, you know, her classic vibe. We are basically following Sophie, who is the head gardener at Lilymore Manor. She is new to this job, but that she's always been obsessed with gardening. She loves plants. She loves to look after them. So she goes to Lilymore Manor for the summer. There she finds a door though to this basically secret garden where a man is stuck in this garden. When she leaves, it'll be like 2 minutes has passed, but it'll be like 5 hours in her world. And he is just kind of stuck in this garden and doesn't really know what's going on, doesn't know reality. She doesn't even know if he's connected to Lilymore by any means. Is he even real? There's a lot of questions going on. She also meets the nephew of the owner of the estate. And so it's kind of like a love triangle, I guess, but not really. She just is like meeting new people and like starting to come out of her shell a little bit. She's a very introverted person. We also deal with themes of like grief and stuff, which I'm realizing is a very prominent theme in Ashley Poston books. This was good. I don't know that I loved it as much as I was expecting. It very much just felt like a cozy, whimsy kind of read. I ended up giving it a 3.75 for that reason, because there were definitely elements that I loved of it. I love the atmosphere. It was such a beautiful, just like magical world. It's magical realism as classic Ashley Poston. Although she just announced that she's writing a fantasy duology, which I'm really excited about. I liked the whole whimsical element it had to it. I really liked Lilymore Manor as a setting. I thought it was really beautiful. I just wasn't obsessed with the plot progression. I thought at times, honestly, it was a little bit slow. Just thought like it could have been a little bit deeper as well. The ending was really cute as well. It was very like happy-go-lucky kind of ending, like a happily ever after vibe, which is always nice. It was a really nice change of pace, to be honest, compared to what I'd been reading. But it just didn't hit completely fully. I was there for the vibes. I wasn't really super connected to our protagonists or any of our characters really, but I was just loving the atmosphere of it all. Those were the 10 books I read in the month of June. You've probably heard me talk about these multiple times by now, so I'm sorry about that, but I hope it was still fun. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video as well. Let me know what your favorite read of June was, if you had any highlights. But yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you have, it truly means the world to me. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video.